The fluorescent lights of Whole Foods buzzed overhead as Maya Chen pushed her cart down the produce aisle, mentally calculating whether she could afford the organic strawberries. At 28, she'd learned to budget carefully on her marketing coordinator salary, even for small luxuries. She reached for a container of berries when a woman's voice cut through the ambient grocery store noise. "Excuse me," Maya turned to find a middle-aged Latina woman staring at her with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. The woman's dark eyes were wide, almost desperate, and her hands trembled as she clutched a worn leather purse. "I'm sorry to bother you, but," the woman's voice cracked, "you look exactly like my daughter." Maya offered a polite smile, the kind she'd perfected for awkward social situations. "I get that sometimes. I guess I have one of those faces." But the woman stepped closer, her gaze never leaving Maya's face. "No, you don't understand. You look exactly like her. The same eyes, the same dimple on your left cheek, even the way you hold your head." Tears began forming in the woman's eyes. "She was taken from me 15 years ago. Kidnapped." A chill ran down Maya's spine. Something about the woman's certainty, her raw desperation, felt different from casual mistaken identity. Maya's hand instinctively moved to her left cheek, where she'd always been self-conscious about the small dimple. "I'm sorry for your loss," Maya said carefully. "But I think you have me confused with someone else. I'm Maya Chen and Emma." The word hit Maya like a physical blow. Her breath caught in her throat, and the strawberries tumbled from her suddenly nerveless fingers, scattering across the polished floor. "Emma Rodriguez," the woman whispered, her voice breaking. "That's your name, isn't it? Your real name?" Maya's world tilted. Emma Rodriguez. She hadn't heard that name in over a decade, hadn't even allowed herself to think it. The Chens had told her it was the name of a dead girl, a forgotten identity from a troubled past she was better off leaving behind. "How do you know that name?" Maya's voice was barely audible. The woman's face crumpled. "Because I'm your mother. I'm Rosa Rodriguez, and I've been looking for you every single day for 15 years. The grocery store seemed to fade around them. Maya stared at this woman, Rosa, searching her face for any spark of recognition. There was something familiar about her eyes, about the way she tilted her head when she was emotional. But Maya's memories of her early childhood were fragmented, deliberately blurred by years of being told they were traumatic fantasies. "That's impossible," Maya whispered, though her voice lacked conviction. "My parents told me I was orphaned, that my biological family didn't want me." Rosa's face hardened with a pain so raw it was almost unbearable to witness. "I never stopped wanting you. I never stopped looking. Every day I prayed I'd find you alive and safe." She reached into her purse with shaking hands and pulled out a worn photograph. "This was taken 2 days before you disappeared." Maya stared at the photo of a 13-year-old girl with her exact face, standing next to a younger version of Rosa. The girl wore a bright yellow dress and had the same dimpled smile Maya saw in her own mirror every morning. "I don't understand," Maya said, her voice hollow. "If you're my mother, then the Chens, they took you from me," Rosa said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "And I've finally found you." The strawberries lay forgotten on the floor as Maya's entire world crumbled around her. 15 years of lies finally beginning to unravel in the harsh light of a grocery store in Portland, Oregon. Maya didn't remember driving home. She sat in her apartment parking lot for 20 minutes, Rosa's phone number burning like a brand in her pocket, the photograph clutched in her trembling hands. The girl in the yellow dress stared back at her with eyes that were undeniably her own. When she finally made it inside, Maya's movements were mechanical. She made tea she didn't drink, started a load of laundry she forgot to switch to the dryer, and tried to convince herself that Rosa Rodriguez was just a grieving mother clinging to false hope. But the name Emma Rodriguez echoed in her mind like a mantra she'd tried desperately to forget. That night, Maya sat at her laptop until dawn, diving into internet searches she'd never allowed herself to conduct before. Emma Rodriguez missing Portland. Her fingers hesitated over the enter key before she finally pressed it. The results made her stomach lurch. Dozens of articles, missing person reports, and Facebook pages dedicated to finding a 13-year-old girl who had vanished without a trace. The photos were all of her younger self, but unmistakably her. Missing Emma Rodriguez, age 30. Family desperate for answers in teen's disappearance. Mother never gives up hope after daughter's kidnapping. Maya scrolled through years of Rosa's posts on the Find Emma Rodriguez Facebook page. Birthday messages to a missing daughter, Christmas photos with an empty chair and a yellow dress laid out, progress reports on investigations that led nowhere. The desperation in Rosa's words grew more pronounced with each passing year, but never disappeared entirely. 15 years today since my baby was taken from me. If you're out there, Emma, know that Mama never stopped looking. Come home to me. The post was dated just 3 months ago. Maya's hands shook as she opened another tab and searched for David Chen, the man she'd called father for 15 years. She'd never questioned his story about adopting her through a private agency after her biological parents died in a car accident. Now she searched for any evidence of legal adoption proceedings. There were none. What she found instead made her blood run cold. David Chen had a history of financial troubles in 2009, right around the time Maya had entered his life. His consulting business had been failing. His wife Margaret had suffered 3 miscarriages, and according to several business articles, he'd been desperate to start over somewhere new. The timeline was damning. In March 2009, Emma Rodriguez disappeared from a park in southeast Portland while walking home from school. In April 2009, David and Margaret Chen moved to northwest Portland with their newly adopted 13-year-old daughter Maya. Maya's memories of that time were fragmented. She remembered being told she'd been in a traumatic accident, that her memories might be confused, that her new family would help her heal. The Chens had been patient with her adjustment period, understanding when she cried for people she claimed to remember but who weren't real. They'd even taken her to a therapist, Dr. Sarah Williams, who specialized in helping traumatized children process false memories and integrate into new family structures. Maya searched for Dr. Williams now, and found her license had been revoked in 2012 for unethical treatment practices involving memory manipulation. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. David Chen hadn't adopted her, he'd stolen her. The gentle, loving father who'd raised her, who'd helped her with homework and taught her to drive, who'd walked her down the aisle at her college graduation, was a kidnapper. Maya stumbled to the bathroom and vomited. When the initial shock subsided, a different emotion began to take its place. Not just grief for the 15 years stolen from her and Rosa, but rage. White-hot, consuming rage at the elaborate lie her entire life had become. She thought about Rosa's Facebook posts, the desperate birthday messages, the empty chair at Christmas dinner. She thought about the woman in the grocery store who'd never stopped searching, never stopped hoping. Rosa had spent 15 years in agony while Maya lived a comfortable lie just miles away. And David Chen, the man she'd loved as a father, trusted implicitly, defended against anyone who questioned their family's unconventional beginnings, had orchestrated all of it. Maya picked up her phone and dialed Rosa's number. "Hello?" Rosa's voice was thick with sleep, but she answered immediately despite the early hour. "It's me," Maya whispered. "It's Emma, and I remember now." The sob that came through the phone broke Maya's heart and sealed her resolve. David Chen had stolen 15 years from both of them. It was time he paid for what he'd done. Rosa's small house in southeast Portland felt like stepping into a shrine. Every surface held photos of Emma, school pictures, candid shots, even artist renderings of what she might look like at different ages. Maya stared at a progression of age-enhanced photos on the mantle, watching her own face mature in theoretical increments. "I had these made every year," Rosa said softly, setting down 2 cups of café con leche. "I needed to believe I'd recognize you when I found you." Maya studied the most recent rendering, a 28-year-old Emma who looked remarkably similar to how she actually appeared now. "You were close. A mother knows her child's face." Rosa's voice was fierce with conviction, even when 15 years and a new name try to steal it away. They'd spent 3 weeks in careful meetings, Maya learning about the family she'd lost while Rosa absorbed the reality of the daughter who'd been living just across town. Maya discovered she had 2 younger brothers she'd never known. Carlos, now 26 and a mechanic, and Diego, 24 and finishing nursing school. Both had spent their teenage years searching for their missing sister, posting flyers and following up on false leads. "They want to meet you," Rosa said, "but they understand you need time." What Maya needed was justice. The police had been sympathetic but ultimately unhelpful. 15 years had passed, David Chen had no criminal record, and without concrete evidence of a crime, Maya's own confused memories weren't enough. The statute of limitations had long expired. The system that should have protected her as a child wouldn't help her as an adult. "So we do this ourselves," Maya had said during their second meeting. Rosa's eyes had hardened. "What do you mean?" I mean, David Chen destroyed your family and stole your daughter. He needs to face consequences. Maya, she corrected. I'm still Maya too. I've been her for 15 years. But Emma deserves justice. Now sitting in Rosa's living room with a laptop between them, Maya outlined her plan. As a marketing coordinator, she understood the power of narrative, of public perception, of carefully orchestrated campaigns. David Chen had built his life on a lie. It was time to tear that foundation down. He's retiring next month, Maya said, pulling up David's LinkedIn profile. 35 years at Cascade Consulting. They're throwing him a big party at the downtown Hilton. All his colleagues, business partners, even the mayor will be there. Rosa leaned forward. What are you thinking? I'm thinking it's the perfect audience for the truth. Maya's fingers flew across the keyboard. David Chen has spent 15 years as the respected businessman, the devoted father, the pillar of the community. What happens when everyone learns he built that reputation on kidnapping a child? You want to expose him publicly. I want to destroy his reputation the way he destroyed your life. Maya's voice was calm, but her eyes burned with purpose. He took your daughter, your peace of mind, your ability to trust. He stole my childhood, my real family, my identity. Public humiliation is the least he deserved. Rosa was quiet for a long moment. And Margaret, his wife? Maya had wrestled with this question. Margaret Chen had been a loving mother, but she'd also been complicit in the lie. She knew Rosa, maybe not at first, but she had to have known. You don't just suddenly get a daughter without asking questions. The boys at work always suspected something was off about our family story, Maya continued. The details never quite added up. Margaret would change the subject whenever anyone asked too many questions about my adoption. She knew. They spent the next 2 hours crafting their strategy. Maya would use her marketing skills to plant seeds of doubt about David's character in the weeks leading up to his retirement party. Anonymous tips to former clients about questionable business practices. Carefully worded social media posts that made people wonder what they didn't know about David Chen. Rosa would gather the evidence, official missing person reports, DNA test results, proving their relationship, documentation of the illegal adoption that never was. They'd present it all at the retirement party, in front of everyone who mattered to David's sense of self. I have contacts in the Latino community who've been following your case for years, Rosa said. They'll be there as witnesses. Some are in media. They'll make sure this story gets told properly. Maya nodded, then hesitated. Rosa, there's something else, something I need you to understand. What? This isn't just about David. I'm angry at Margaret too, but I love her. She was my mother for 15 years. She tucked me in at night, helped me with homework, held me when I cried. Maya's voice broke. I hate that I love her, but I do. Rosa reached across the table and took Maya's hand. That doesn't make you a traitor. Mija, it makes you You can love the mother who raised you and still seek justice for the mother who lost you. Will you be able to handle seeing them together? At the party, Rosa's grip tightened. I've handled 15 years of not knowing if you were alive or dead. I can handle one night in the same room as the people who stole you from me. Maya opened a new document on her laptop and began typing. Then let's plan the end of David Chen's comfortable life. Over the following days, Maya's plan took shape with military precision. She created fake social media accounts and began subtly undermining David's reputation. Anonymous emails to his business partners, hinting at concerning behavior from years past. Carefully placed rumors that made people question what they thought they knew about the respected consultant. She watched from a distance as David grew increasingly paranoid, suspicious of colleagues and friends. He'd call Maya more frequently, his voice strained as he complained about disloyal business partners and unfounded rumors. People are jealous of my success, he told her during one particularly bitter phone call. They want to tear down everything I've built. Maybe you should just ignore them, Dad, Maya said, the word dad tasting like ash in her mouth. No, someone is deliberately trying to sabotage me. I can feel it. He was right, of course. Maya was systematically dismantling his peace of mind, just as he'd dismantled Rosa's 15 years ago. It should have felt satisfying. Instead, she found herself struggling with unexpected guilt. This was the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd stayed up all night helping her finish a science project, who'd cried at her college graduation. He was also a kidnapper who'd built his family on a stolen child. Second thoughts, Rosa asked when Maya confessed her conflicted feelings. No, Maya said firmly. He made his choice 15 years ago. Now he lives with the consequences. And if he tries to deny it, if he claims we're lying, Maya smiled grimly. Then we present the DNA evidence, the missing person reports, and the testimony of Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, I tracked her down. Turns out she's been living with the guilt of what she did for years. She's willing to testify about how David Chen paid her to manipulate a kidnapped child's memories. Maya's voice hardened. He thought he'd covered all his tracks. The retirement party was in 5 days. David Chen had no idea that his carefully constructed life was about to come crashing down around him. But Emma Rodriguez and Maya Chen were ready to make sure he finally faced the truth. Maya's campaign against David Chen intensified with surgical precision. She'd spent years observing him, understanding his vulnerabilities, his pride points, his deepest fears. Now she weaponized that knowledge. Phase 1 began with his business relationship. Maya knew David's greatest pride was his reputation as an ethical consultant who'd never lost a client. She crafted anonymous emails to 3 of his biggest accounts, each carefully worded to plant seeds of doubt without making specific accusations. I feel compelled to share some concerns about David Chen's past practices. While I cannot provide details due to legal constraints, I believe you should be aware that there may be aspects of his character that don't align with his public persona. I would encourage you to do your own research into his background before continuing any business relationships. The emails were untraceable, professional, and maddeningly vague. Within 48 hours, David was fielding uncomfortable questions from clients who'd worked with him for decades. They're asking about my past practices, he told Maya during one of their increasingly frequent phone calls. His voice was strained, paranoid. Someone is spreading lies about me, Maya. 15 years of building relationships, and now they're questioning everything. Maybe it's just pre-retirement jitters, Maya suggested, hating how easily the lie rolled off her tongue. People get weird when someone successful is about to leave. No, this is deliberate. Someone wants to destroy my reputation. He was right, and Maya felt a twisted satisfaction at the fear in his voice. This was how Rosa had felt for 15 years. Helpless, paranoid, constantly questioning what she might have done wrong. Phase 2 targeted his personal relationship. Maya knew David's social circle revolved around the Portland Business Association, where he'd served on the board for 8 years. She created a fake LinkedIn profile for Maria Santos, a concerned parent, and began posting carefully crafted comments on the association's social media pages. Interesting how some members of your board have such mysterious pasts. Has anyone looked into David Chen's sudden appearance in Portland with adopted daughter back in 2000? Just asking questions as a concerned community member. The posts were subtle enough to avoid legal issues but provocative enough to make people curious. Maya watched the comments multiply as other users began asking their own questions, sharing their own suspicions about David's family story that had never quite made sense. David's paranoia reached new heights. He began calling Maya multiple times a day, his voice increasingly frantic. They're looking into our family, Maya. People are asking questions about your adoption. I don't understand why this is happening now, after all these years. What kind of questions? Maya asked, her heart pounding. About the agency we used. About your biological parents. Someone even asked Margaret if we had adoption papers. His voice cracked. Why would they ask that? We've never hidden the fact that you were adopted. Because you never legally adopted me, Maya thought. Because there are no papers to show. Dad, you're scaring me, she said, injecting just the right amount of concern into her voice. Maybe you should talk to a lawyer. I'm thinking about it. This feels like harassment. Maya's guilt intensified with each conversation. David sounded genuinely frightened, genuinely confused about why his world was falling apart. But then she'd remember Rosa's Facebook posts, the 15 years of birthday messages to a missing daughter, and her resolve would harden. Phase 3 was the most dangerous direct manipulation of David's current family relationships. Maya knew Margaret Chen's patterns, her insecurities, her tendency toward anxiety. She began sending Margaret anonymous letters, each one carefully designed to increase her paranoia about David's past. Mrs. Chen, you deserve to know the truth about your husband's actions in 2000. Ask yourself, why are there no legal adoption records for Maya? Why did your family suddenly move neighborhoods right after she joined you? Why does she look so much like the missing girl, Emma Rodriguez? A concerned friend. Margaret's calls to Maya became daily occurrences. Honey, someone's been sending me these awful letters about. They're saying terrible things about your adoption, about our family. I don't know what to do. What kind of things? Maya asked, her stomach churning. They're suggesting that, Margaret's voice broke, that you weren't legally adopted, that Dad somehow, but that's impossible. Your father would never, he couldn't. Maya heard the doubt creeping into Margaret's voice, the questions she'd apparently been suppressing for 15 years finally bubbling to the surface. Mom, Dad loves me, he loves our family. Someone's just trying to hurt him because he's successful. I know. But Maya, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. Do you remember anything about your life before you came to us? Anything at all? Maya's breath caught. You told me not to think about. You said it would only hurt me. I know what we told you, but do you remember? The question hung in the air between them. Maya thought about Rosa's photograph, about the yellow dress, about fragments of memory that were becoming clearer each day. She thought about the woman in the grocery store who'd recognized her face after 15 years. No, Maya lied. I don't remember anything. But Margaret's doubt was planted, and Maya knew it would grow. The final phase targeted David's professional reputation direct. Maya leaked information about Dr. Williams to a journalist at Portland Monthly, who'd been investigating unethical adoption practices. She provided just enough details to make the story worth pursuing. A disgraced therapist who'd helped families cover up questionable adoptions, a respected businessman who'd been one of her clients. When the article published 3 days before David's retirement party, it didn't mention him by name, but anyone who knew about his troubled adopted daughter and the timeline of her arrival would be able to connect the dots. David's world was crumbling, and Maya watched from the sidelines as he became increasingly isolated, increasingly desperate. His business partners were distancing themselves, his social connections were asking uncomfortable questions, and his wife was beginning to doubt the foundation of their family. Someone is trying to destroy me, he told Maya during their last conversation before the party. They're dragging up old pain, making people question everything I've built. I don't know what I did to deserve this. Maya almost broke then. The man on the phone sounded broken, defeated. He sounded like a father who was losing everything he'd worked for, everything he cared about. But then she remembered Rosa's voice in the grocery store, the way she'd said Emma like a prayer, like a name she'd been carrying in her heart for 15 years. She remembered the empty chair at Christmas dinner, the desperate Facebook posts, the life that had been stolen from both of them. It'll be okay, Dad, Maya said, the endearment feeling like a betrayal of everything she'd discovered. Tomorrow night, at your party, you'll have a chance to set the record straight, to tell everyone the truth about our family. You're right, David said, his voice gaining strength. I'll face whatever lies they're spreading. I'll tell everyone exactly how you came into our lives, how much you mean to us. Maya smiled grimly. Yes, tell them exactly how I came into your lives. Tomorrow night, David Chen would finally tell the truth, whether he wanted to or not. The Portland Hilton's grand ballroom buzzed with conversation and clinking glasses. Maya stood at the back of the room watching David Chen work the crowd with the practiced charm of a man who'd spent 35 years building relationships. He looked older than she remembered. The stress of the past few weeks had carved new lines around his eyes, but he was putting on a brave face for his retirement celebration. Margaret stood beside him, radiant in a navy cocktail dress, playing the part of the devoted wife. But Maya could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The anonymous letters had done their work. You ready for this? Rosa appeared at Maya's elbow, elegant in a black dress that had probably cost her a month's salary. Behind her stood Carlos and Diego, Maya's brothers, who'd insisted on being there despite Maya's protests. I need to see the man who stole my sister, Carlos had said. I need to look him in the eye when the truth comes out. Maya nodded, her throat tight. Dr. Williams is here. She's sitting at table 12, ready to testify if needed. The DNA results. Maya patted her purse, right here along with the missing person reports and the timeline evidence. She took a deep breath. Once I do this, there's no going back. David's life is over. Good, Diego said firmly. He destroyed our family. Now we destroy his. But as Maya watched David laugh at something his business partner said, she felt that familiar twist of guilt. This was the man who'd taught her to drive, who'd helped her move into her first apartment, who'd been so proud when she got her marketing job. He was also the man who'd stolen her from her real family and built his happiness on their greed. The evening progressed with typical retirement party beats, speeches from colleagues, a slideshow of David's career highlights, toasts to his future. Maya noticed how many people seemed uncomfortable, how conversations died when David approached, how the questions about his family history followed him from group to group. Her campaign had worked. David Chen was already a man under suspicion. At 9 o'clock, the formal program began. David's business partner, Robert Martinez, took the microphone to introduce the evening's speakers. Maya moved closer to the front of the room, Rosa and her brothers flanking her. David Chen has been more than a colleague, Robert said. He's been a mentor, a friend, and a man whose integrity has been the foundation of our company's success. Maya saw David's face tighten at the word integrity. He knew what was coming, even if he didn't know exactly how. After 3 speeches praising David's professional accomplishments, Margaret took the microphone. Her voice was steady, but Maya could see her hands shaking. David isn't just a successful businessman, Margaret said. He's a devoted husband and father. 15 years ago, he opened our home and our hearts to a young girl who needed a family. Maya has been the light of our lives, and I'm so proud of the woman she's become. The crowd applauded politely, but Maya noticed how many people were whispering, how the applause seemed forced. They were all thinking about the rumors, the questions, the articles that had been circulating. It was time. Maya stepped forward, her heels clicking on the marble floor. The sound cut through the applause like a blade. Margaret looked up, surprised to see her daughter approaching the microphone. Maya, honey, Margaret said, stepping aside. Did you want to say something about Dad? Maya took the microphone, her hands surprisingly steady. The room fell silent. 200 pairs of eyes focused on her. She found David in the crowd. He was staring at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Not confusion or concern, but recognition. He knew. I do want to say something about David Chen, Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the sound system. But first, I need to tell you who I really am. She reached into her purse and pulled out the photograph Rosa had shown her in the grocery store. The image appeared on the screens around the room, a 13-year-old girl in a yellow dress, standing next to a woman who looked exactly like Rosa. This is Emma Rodriguez, Maya said. She was kidnapped from a Portland park 15 years ago. Her mother, Rosa Rodriguez, has been searching for her ever since. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Maya saw David's face go white, saw Margaret's hand fly to her mouth. Emma Rodriguez is my name, Maya continued. My real name, and Rosa Rodriguez is my mother. She gestured to Rosa, who stepped forward with dignity despite the stares of 200 strangers. David Chen didn't adopt me through any legal agent. He didn't save me from an orphanage, or rescue me from a tragic accident. He kidnapped me. The room erupted in chaos. Voices rose in shock and disbelief. Maya saw people pulling out phones, recording, taking pictures. David stood frozen in place, his face a mask of horror. That's impossible, Margaret said, but her voice was barely audible over the crowd noise. Maya pulled out the DNA results, holding them up for everyone to see. These prove that Rosa Rodriguez is my biological mother. These are the missing person reports filed when I disappeared. And this, she held up a legal document, is a sworn statement from Dr. Sarah Williams, the therapist who helped David Chen manipulate my memories and convince me that my real family was dead. Maya, stop this, David said, finally finding his voice. He pushed through the crowd toward the stage. Whatever someone has told you, whatever lies, the only lies, Maya said, her voice cutting through his protests, are the ones you told me for 15 years. You stole me from my mother. You moved us across town and gave me a new name. You paid a therapist to make me forget who I was. David reached the stage, his face desperate. You don't understand. Your real family, they couldn't take care of you. Your mother was young, she was struggling. I gave you a better life. You gave me a lie, Maya said, and you gave my mother 15 years of hell, wondering if her daughter was dead or alive. Rosa stepped forward, her voice carrying across the silent room. I worked 3 jobs to support my children. I was never neglectful, never abusive. I loved Emma with everything I had, and you took her from me. I loved her too, David said, his voice breaking. I raised her, I cared for her. She was my daughter. She was never your daughter, Carlos said, appearing at Maya's side. She was ours. You stole our sister and made our mother believe she was dead. Maya looked out at the crowd, seeing the horror and disgust on their faces. She saw David's business partners backing away from him, saw Margaret standing alone, tears streaming down her face. She saw Dr. Williams at table 12, nodding sadly as she witnessed the consequences of her action. I want everyone to understand, Maya said, her voice steady despite the emotional chaos around her, that Margaret Chen was as much a victim as I was. She believed David's lies about my adoption. She raised me with love and kindness, and I will always be grateful for that. Margaret's sob was audible across the room. But David Chen is a kidnapper, Maya continued. He destroyed my mother's life, stole my identity, and built his reputation on a crime. He doesn't deserve your respect or your admiration. He deserves to face the consequences of what he did. David looked around the room at faces that had once shown him respect and admiration, now twisted with disgust and betrayal. His carefully constructed life was crumbling in real time, broadcast to everyone who mattered to him. You don't understand what you're doing, he said to Maya, his voice desperate. I'm your father. I raised you. I loved you. Maya met his eyes, seeing the man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd helped her with homework, who'd been there for every important moment of her life. She also saw the man who'd stolen her from her real family and built his happiness on their grief. You were never my father, she said quietly. You were my kidnapper, and it's time everyone knew the truth. The room fell silent except for Margaret's quiet sobs and the sound of phones recording the destruction of David Chen's life. Maya had gotten her revenge, but as she watched the man who'd raised her crumble before her eyes, she wondered if justice and revenge were really the same thing after all. 3 months later, Maya sat in Rosa's backyard garden, watching her mother tend to the tomato plants, while Diego grilled carne asada for Sunday dinner. The scene felt both foreign and familiar, like a memory she'd lost and found again. The DNA results made all the difference, Carlos said, settling into the chair beside her with a beer. Even David's lawyer couldn't argue with science. The legal aftermath had been swift but complicated. While the statute of limitations prevented criminal charges for kidnapping, David faced federal charges for falsifying documents and defrauding the adoption system. Dr. Williams had testified against him in exchange for a reduced sentence for her own crime. The civil lawsuit Rosa filed would likely bankrupt him, but perhaps more devastating than any legal consequence was David's complete social and professional destruction. The video of Maya's revelation had gone viral, shared thousands of times across social media. Cascade Consulting had severed all ties with him. The Portland Business Association had revoked his membership. Former friends and colleagues refused to take his calls. How is Margaret? Rosa asked, not looking up from her plan. It was a question she asked every week, and Maya knew it came from genuine concern rather than morbid curiosity. She's surviving, Maya said. She filed for divorce last month. She's staying with her sister in Seattle until everything is settled. Maya had visited Margaret twice since the party. The first time, Margaret had been angry, feeling betrayed by Maya's deception. The second time she'd been broken, apologizing over and over for not seeing the signs, for not asking the right questions, for loving a man who'd stolen someone else's child. I keep thinking about all the times David got nervous when people asked about your adoption, Margaret had said through tears. All the times he changed the subject or got defensive. I told myself it was just because the process had been so difficult, so private. But deep down, I think I knew something was wrong. Maya had held her, this woman who'd been more of a mother to her than anyone else for 15 years, and felt the complex weight of love and loss and forgiveness. Do you regret it? Diego asked now, his nurse's training making him attentive to the subtle signs of Maya's ongoing emotional struggle. What you did to him? Maya considered the question she'd been asking herself every day since the party. I don't regret exposing the truth. Rosa deserved justice. I deserved to know who I really was, and David needed to face consequences for what he did. But, Carlos prompted, but I didn't expect it to hurt this much, Maya admitted. Watching someone you love destroy themselves, even when they deserve it, it's harder than I thought it would be. She'd heard through mutual friends that David was living alone in a studio apartment, his consulting business dissolved, his reputation in ruins. He'd tried to contact Maya several times, but she wasn't ready for that conversation yet. Maybe she never would be. Healing isn't linear, Maya, Rosa said, finally looking up from her garden. You're grieving the father you thought you had while celebrating the family you found. That's complicated. Over the past 3 months, Maya had slowly integrated into the Rodriguez family rhythm. Sunday dinners, holiday celebrations, casual weeknight check-ins. She was learning her brother's personalities, Carlos's dry humor and protective instincts, Diego's gentle empathy and fierce intelligence. She was discovering family traditions she'd never known, stories about grandparents she'd never met, a cultural heritage that had been stolen along with her identity. But she was also struggling with the reality that she couldn't simply slot back into a life she'd lost at 13. She'd grown up as Maya Chen, shaped by different experiences, different values, different relationships. The Maya who loved Margaret Chen and felt guilty about David's destruction couldn't be erased any more than Emma Rodriguez could be forgotten. I've been thinking about changing my name, Maya said suddenly. Legally, I mean. Back to Emma Rodriguez, Rosa's hands stilled on the tomato plants. What does your heart tell you? My heart tells me I'm both, Maya said. I'm Emma Rodriguez, Rosa's daughter, Carlos and Diego's sister, but I'm also Maya Chen, the woman who was raised with love even if it was built on a lie. I don't want to lose either part of myself. Then don't, Diego said simply. Emma Maya Rodriguez Chen, all of you in one name. Maya smiled at the suggestion, feeling something settle in her chest. That might work. The conversation was interrupted by Rosa's phone ringing. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It's a reporter from People magazine. They want to do a follow-up story about our reunion. Maya had been fielding media requests constantly since the video went viral. The story had captured public attention. The devoted mother who never gave up searching. The successful kidnapper who'd hidden in plain sight. The daughter who'd orchestrated her own justice. Several publishers had reached out about book deal. A true crime podcast wanted to do a series about the case. I'm thinking about saying yes to some of the interviews, Maya said, not for the attention, but because there are other families out there dealing with similar situations. Maybe our story can help someone else. Rosa nodded approvingly. Emma's case got attention because you were able to speak for yourself, because you had the resources and education to fight back. But there are missing children whose families don't have those advantages. If our story helps them, then something good comes from all this pain. As the afternoon progressed into evening, Maya watched her biological family interact with an observer's eye. She was learning to love them, but it was a conscious choice rather than the unconscious bond she'd shared with the Chens. Love built through intention rather than history. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Maya, it's Dad. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need you to know I'm sorry. I love you and I know I have no right to say that anymore, but it's true. I hope someday you can forgive me. Maya stared at the message for a long moment, then showed it to Rosa. What do you think? Maya asked. Rosa read the text twice, her expression thoughtful. I think David Chen is a man who stole my daughter and destroyed my family. I also think he's a man who loved you the only way he knew how, even if that love was built on a terrible crime. She handed the phone back. Whether you forgive him is your choice, Maya, but forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean letting him back into your life. Maya looked around the table at Carlos arguing with Diego about the basketball game, at Rosa serving second helpings of rice and beans, at the family she'd lost and found again. She thought about Margaret, alone in Seattle grieving the collapse of her marriage. She thought about David, isolated and broken, living with the consequences of a choice he'd made 15 years ago. Justice had been served. David Chen's reputation was destroyed, his life in ruins, his crime exposed to the world. Rosa had her daughter back, the Rodriguez family was whole again, and the truth had finally been told. But revenge, Maya realized, was a blunt instrument. It had given her justice but not peace, consequences but not closure. The real healing would come from building a future that honored both Emma Rodriguez and Maya Chen, that celebrated the family she'd found while acknowledging the complexity of the family that had raised her. I might write him back eventually, Maya said, tucking her phone away. But not today. Today I just want to be here with you. Rosa smiled and reached across the table to squeeze her daughter's hand. Today you're home. That's enough. As the sun set over Portland, Emma Maya Rodriguez Chen, all of her in all her complicated wholeness, was finally where she belonged. The revenge was complete. The truth was told, and now the real work of living with the consequences could begin. Some wounds could be healed, some relationships could be rebuilt, some justice could be served, and sometimes, just sometimes, that was enough.